the key concerns since independence, effects from COVID-19, global shocks including troubles of war in Ukraine, corruption, change of guard and so much more. Kenya's reforms program to deal with these challenges. Reducing debt vulnerabilities is driven by a multi-year fiscal consolidation focused on raising tax revenue, prioritizing expenditures while safeguarding resources to protect vulnerable groups, addressing weaknesses in state-owned enterprises, strengthening the country's anti-corruption framework, and strengthening the monetary policy. Some of the things that actually the country is looking at. And on this budget week, the conversation is on just how best can we get the economy vibrant again. Well, interesting conversations have been making rounds, and the beauty of it all is that Kenyans are for a very, for once, engaged in these conversations revolving around the budget, revolving around the finance bill, echoing their sentiments, some saying they are in agreement with some clauses therein, others challenging some, others accepting it as it is, while others saying completely it should be washed off and we start off on a different or a clean slate. Just what do you make of this? This is what we'll be looking at this morning, even as we look forward to see what is going to play out in Parliament as the legislators are actually taking a look at a 500-page report, some arguing that, well, it's quite an extensive report that might not be looked at, in one moment or perhaps one night after that moment when it was presented to the National Assembly Speaker. But then we'll be looking to see what they will establish in terms of picking some of the clauses that they agree with, that is, they are in the Finance Bill 2023, and those ones that they would seek to have adjustments for purposes of making sure that, well, it's a fair conversation for basically the people of Kenya, and equally looking forward to listen from the boss of Treasury as to what will be the budget of Kenya Kwanza. Join us right now. The hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV47K, and let's all be part of this conversation. My name is Linda Alela, and the broadcast begins right away. This is Morning Cafe TV47. Keep me company all the way to 9:30 a.m. Later on, we'll also be hitting the kitchen with Yola for just some basic tips of how you can make the best of the simplest of meals that you have around, of course, with produces that are readily available. We start off by looking at the newspapers. We have the Daily Nation, the Standard newspaper, as well as the People Daily. That will help us, as well trigger the conversations that we'll be having. We start off by looking at the Daily Nation. Haji just a step from becoming next top spy. Members of Parliament have approved Nordin Haji for appointment as the next Director General of the National Intelligence Service. Just how different will his reign be? Different from the recent position that he's stepping down from, that is the DPP position. We'll certainly be following up to see whether then he is the best match for this very position, as well alongside Thuge, who also is set to take up the position of CBK. Away from it, we have this one that has been captured here on the poll as to the tax proposals that have been accorded to us by the Finance Bill. And results of a new survey show that Kenyans are strongly opposed to most of the controversial proposals that are contained in the bill. And this survey, conducted by Twaweza and I think CFA, these are civil society entities that are speaking to what Kenyans think about the Finance Bill 2023, as of course we have evidently seen the Kenya Kwanza government, or perhaps the president, equally just bowing to the pressure from the people of Kenya and saying that he's going to make several adjustments as to what it is these proposals are all about, including the housing levy and as well a couple of other proposals that sit therein. The one that they would have wished for adjustments to be made was on the fuel levy, but it looks like that one stands at 16%. Just what are the possibilities that this bill sails through as it is? What amendments are likely to be made at the level of Parliament by the members of Parliament? We can only wait to see. Why the super rich are fleeing Kenya. There's a story that is captured on the front page. A report shows that 800 individuals fell off list of countries' dollar millionaires in 2022. And the question is just why is this report coming out that way? Some $100 millionaires fled Kenya last year for countries with less taxation, well, better political stability and stronger economic growth. And 100 more are expected to follow suit this year, according to a new report that is on migration trends of the world's tycoons. A story captured on page 6. Certainly not good for business and equally for an economy that is trying to, stabilize itself from the difficult times of debt and so much more. And so this report perhaps bringing a lot of jitters in relation to just how can even the investors trust the country to come and put their investments here, and what could have informed this about turn. And evidently, as you can see, some of them will say there's a lot of conversation on kickbacks, and so most investors would rather proceed to different countries where they won't be asked for more kickbacks and they're able to set up their entities well. We're talking about political instability, increased taxation, currency depreciation, and such for personal freedom to be the main reasons as to why these millionaires or billionaires, if you want to call them, opt out. And I remember that story that was accorded to us as to Dangote, who said, well, perhaps maybe it's time to go and invest somewhere else because the situation wasn't so rosy. And the likes of Alibaba. Now, well done, Faith's heroic open bag of goodies for athletes. Congratulations to her. Also, she's accorded 5 million. And, well, the president as well saying that basically this should always be the case for those ones that take Kenyans, to the map by making sure that they break the world records. And therefore, we appreciate and celebrate our athletes, our sportsmen and women for constantly, carrying the flag high. Ruto opens battlefront with Right Honorable Raila Odinga over Mungiki, and President William Ruto accused Azimio la Umoja One Kenya for plotting to revive the outlawed Mungiki sect. And according to the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, he says, well, these are the very same hustlers that you asked to vote for you. And now that they are asking for their rights, or perhaps speaking as Kenyans would, then you want to label them as Mungiki. It's going to be an interesting conversation, and we wait to see just how best the government is going to handle this, as well as the opposition side. That is on the front page of the Daily Nation. Briefly, the Standard newspaper. Baptism by fire for Ruto's money man. Suddenly, on this budget moment, it's an acid test as President Ruto's top money man presents the regime's first budget tomorrow. Then he walks a tightrope of staying fiscally prudent while cushioning the vulnerable members of society and equally farming the engines of an ailing economy. That's a story captured on page 4 and 5. One that Kenyans are eagerly waiting to see what will affect them, what will be a plus for them, what will be a negative for them, and just how different this, most expensive budget will be like, and just how best the Kenya Kwanza government would be able to make sure that it serves the purpose for the people of Kenya. Certainly a budget that is way above our capability in terms of the collections of money. That is, revenue collection, and well, in relation to the taxes that we have collected. And that then means it is a moment where we'll have to go back to debt. If not debt, then more and more taxes, which is basically what Kenyans are pulling an outcry on. So 200,000 students surviving on others' monies, and suddenly also it is not all good on the education sector. Adjustments equally being made in relation to that. First of all, we have seen principals as well arguing that they might be forced to render the schools or to close the schools because then they do not have enough funding from government to sustain the situation. And some students equally coming from families that are not able to cater for school fees. And so as the government would declare in the business of 100% transition and equally saying that no child should be sent home because they did not pay school fees, then it becomes a difficult time to handle the questions of education for us as the country. And that's basically why we say then there's this report that speaks to, numerous students sitting in schools, but equally, just getting the benefit courtesy of others. And so while the conversation is on as to how best we can handle the question of education, I think is a matter of wait and see. But the beauty of it all is that in this very budget that is set to be read by CS Nungu, it is evident that education is amongst the entities or the sectors that are getting the largest chunk in terms of allocation. Why Ruto Raila duel could save Siaya's Odwol at the level of the counties, that is on page 21. It would be interesting to watch, because then upon that conversation of impeachment and the fact that he has been labeled to be a deputy who is against, what it is that the boss says, perhaps it's a moment where, well, then maybe it will be a saving moment, because we have seen then the Azimio side complaining that the president has in a huge way tried his level best to get most of the legislators in favor of basically what is the agenda of the government. And so at this time of tussle, perhaps it could be a saving point for Odwol. But away from it, Kega's Jubilee faction pulls out of Azimio. Finally, well, it's been a conversation of Jubilee, and how we can get sanity in this very party. It's not been all rosy. That faction led by Kanini Kega, and that faction, led by former President Uhuru Kenyatta, equally speaking in different tongues. And officially, these ones that really wished to cross, the Rubicon to the other side, evidently have made good their threat. And CCTV, why neighbors must give a nod as to why we should have CCTV. We all evidently understand the importance of security, and therefore I'll not go into details of that. I have spoken about the baptism of fire aspect, and equally a smile of a champion as we celebrate faith. Indeed, taking that step of faith and successfully bringing the cap or the medal home. Haji set for spy boss job as MPs clear him. Legislators from both sides of the House approved report that had recommended DPP for powerful position of NIS and Director General Nordin Haji to start work once he is sworn in. All the best to him. 47 county bosses get hefty pay. A story captured on page 8. Also, this on a conversation of making sure that devolution works well. Tax bill debate to rock parliament, and this morning will keenly be following up on the events of this. Kenya Kwanza members of parliament are facing the acid test as well in their quest to pass controversial finance bill. As team bows to pressure, reduces some of the high taxes. And on the other side, as the Mio says, that reliefs for not enough vow to go against this very same document and budget to be read tomorrow. We'll be following up on all that to update you. Again, story to appreciate what it is that, faith did to us and other athletes. And on the other side, the committee appreciates the impact of increasing VAT on petroleum products as proposed in the bill from 8 to 16%. This, according to the report that was presented to the Speaker of the National Assembly, and therefore the business begins this morning. On the occasion of Albinism Day, the global community recognizes the challenges faced by individuals with this condition, including the impact of climate change. Experts highlight the heightened risk of skin cancer among albinos due to effects of a changing climate. Under the theme, inclusion is strength, and albinos continue to confront various obstacles in today's society, with discrimination and limited job opportunities being prominent concerns. Our reporter Nicholas Bai examines the main challenges faced by albinos in Kenya, with a particular focus on the impact of climate change.
Climate change effects have posed significant problems for many people, but the consequences appear to be particularly dire for albinos who lack melanin in their skin, making them prone to skin cancer.
When you look at the biology of albinism, the lack of more higher than prevention. So how better than educating people about climate change and alleviate the effects that would come with climate change.
In Machakos sub-county, we meet Mr. Ndunda, a teacher who educates students with disabilities.
Kwa hivyo kama magonjwa yameongezeka, utakuta kwamba wanaathirika zaidi kwa sababu miili yao wengi wao haina ule uwezo wa kupigana na magonjwa. Kwa hivyo yale magonjwa yatakuja yanaweza waathiri. Kwa hiyo ni njia moja ambayo upanzi wa miti. Kwa hivyo tunajua kwamba tukipanda miti ili tuzuie climate change, pia tunakabiliana na magonjwa ambayo yanaweza imbuka.
As the world commemorates Albinism Day, the detrimental effects of climate change pose a substantial threat to individuals in similar situation.
Nimekuja kusherehekea pamoja na wenzangu, maana mimi ndiye climate change championship wa Kajiado. katika organization inaitwa Black Albinism from Nairobi. Leo nimekuja kusherehekea na wao, maana tunasherehekea siku ya walemavu wa ngozi ambao ni persons with albinism. Ingawaje tumesherehekea leo tarehe 10 mwezi wa 6 badala ya tarehe 13, tumeona siku ya leo ndio inatufaa ili tuweze kushirikiana pamoja na wenzetu wengine wale wana ulemavu, ili wajue pia tunafanana, tunaweza kuwa pamoja, kwamba we are capable, we can do other things like other people. Pia tumefanya kazi ya kupanda miti, tuonyeshe ya kwamba hatuwezi tufanya advocacy pale kwa kuongea, but tunafanya advocacy pia kwa matendo.
Despite their struggle with the new challenges brought by climate change, many albinos still experience discrimination in their communities. Some are unable to secure employment opportunity, even though their rights are protected by the Constitution. Jedida Mutinda, an albino herself, shares the experience of enduring discrimination for years, with many albinos even avoiding public places out of fear.
Kitu yenye ningehimiza watu wote walemavu, whether ni ulemavu wa ngozi ama ulemavu mwingine wowote, jitokeze, uonekane, ujulikane, pia ujue uko na uwezo. Ulemavu usikuzuie kufanya mambo ya kawaida. You have your own strength. Uko na kenye unaweza fanya yenye itakuzuia kufanya kwa sababu ya ulemavu wako. Na pia tuache kuficha watoto kwa nyumba. Tuache kuficha walemavu kwa nyumba. Mtu akiwa kwa wheelchair akipatiwa kazi ya ofisi anaweza fanya. Mtu kama a person with albinism ako na ulemavu wa ngozi kama mimi, ukinipatia kazi kwa ofisi yenye sitachomeka na jua naweza fanya. Mtu ako na ulemavu wa mguu yenye anatembea na crutches, kuna vitu nyingi unaweza fanya. Pia tuko na michezo ya watu wenye ulemavu wanaweza fanya. Kwa hivyo tutoe watu kwa manyumba, tuwapeleke shule, tuwapatie makazi. Sababu kila mlemavu pia ako na familia. Mlemavu anategemewa na familia yake. Kwa hivyo akiwa kama afanyi kazi, inakuwa ni changamoto pia kwake kuoa. Sababu akioa na ana any source of income, inakuwa ni shida.
Today, albinos participate in a tree planting event in Machakos County as part of the efforts to mitigate climate change. Zipora Ntunini, an advocate from Albinism Rights from Kajiado County, emphasizes the need for improved employment opportunities at both county and national levels.
Tunaomba our counties government and national government washirikiane pamoja na sisi, watunge mkono, watushikilie ili tunapofanya haya mambo kuhusiana na hali ya anga waweze kushirikiana na sisi kwa funds ili tuweze kupata kama miti ili ya kuweza kupanda, tuweze kufikia pia watoto wale wana ulemavu.
While many suffer in silence, experts issue a warning that albinos in Africa will soon experience the adverse effects of climate change, just as it is already happening in developed countries where diseases like skin cancer are prevalent. Nicholas Mbai reporting for TV47, Machakos County.
And over 60 youthful women drawn from Nakuru County stand to benefit from a digital skills training workshop that aims to transform their lives. The training is sponsored and run by Ajira Digital Program and the Young African Women Initiative will empower the young women to explore online jobs and e-commerce opportunities. TV47's Chichi Josephine with that.
Under the theme Empowering Young Women with Digital Skills for Gender Equality, the trainees also shared experiences, opportunities and peer-to-peer mentorship to help them attain individual and collective growth in the online sector. Yawi Executive Director Fidelis Karanja said that the joint venture with ADP is seeking to hook up more than 500 youthful women to online jobs.
Today we are having girls, those who have just completed Form 4, and they require digital skills. Why do they require digital skills? Is that they are able to, whatever they are doing, they are able to market online. They're also able to get a lot of information whereby they can advance their careers online and also encourage other girls to come on board so that they are able to get opportunities in
The beneficiaries from Nakuru's informal settlement areas of Kaptembo, Ronda and Bundeni were trained on how to find online jobs and monetize access to the internet.
We are training young girls on digital and digitally enabled skills, and today we are training them on digital marketing, whereby they are able to market the skills they have the things they are doing at home, so that at least they are not, they don't stay at home just idle and using their internet just for browsing. They are at least able to get something out of the bundles and the Wi-Fi they get.
According to Ms. Karanja, the initial cohort will serve as trainers of trainees and will be tasked with mentoring other youth interested in earning a living through online work.
We're also training them on how they can protect themselves from cyberbullying, and they are able to thrive in these spaces. So that is why we have identified the girls in the informal settlement. They can be able to participate, because most of the times, because of economic challenges or even lack of information, they are lagging behind.
We have different modules, and the basic ones are content writing, where they're able to be taught on content writing, article writings, blog writings, and what have you. Then we have another one called transcription. This is the conversion of a spoken word to written document. Then we have another one called virtual assistant. This is where a person, it's more of a personal assistant, but now this one is hired virtually. You're able to keep someone's dates.
Kenya's internet penetration rate is about 85.3%, according to the Regulator Communications Authority of Kenya, highly compared with 28.7% for the continent as a whole. Chichi Josephine, TV47.
And since the fertilizer subsidy program was started by the government in January 2023, targeting the food basket counties of the country, more than 1 million farmers in 40 counties have benefited from the program. Joash Onsari tells us more in this story produced by Eric Matika.
Months after Kenyans started receiving subsidy,
kuwa naweza vuna magunia karibu 14 kwa kitu eka moja. Last time nilivuna gunia 4.
The subsidy program that subsidized both planting and top dressing fertilizer at 3,500 shillings per 50 kg bag also brought on board seed growers with a commitment to maximize production so as to reduce the cost of seed to the farmer in the next season and hence reduce expense on seed imports.
Mbolea akatupatia na mahindi, mbegu na maharagwe yenyewe tununua tu locally. Tunakuanga na storage, kama ukivuna lazima ustore kidogo ya kupanda. Lakini mbolea na mahindi tulitoa kwa county government, na saa hizi tunatarajia kuchukua ya national government ili kutuendeleshe kilimo vile inatakana.
According to a report released by the government, the distribution networks was the National Cereals and Produce Board and Kenya National Trading Corporation stores across the country. New short-term stores were opened in areas far from NCPB stores in partnership with the county governments to reduce the distance and cost of transport covered by farmers to access the fertilizer.
Over 50,000 farmers have gotten text messages to redeem fertilizer from the National Cereals and Produce Board or the nearest KNTC stores.
The fertilizer in stock is sufficient to all the farmers in all the value chains for both the current ending long rains to the short rains expected in October this year. The farmers can access the fertilizer 7 days in a week. Joash Onsare, TV 47.
And President William Ruto has issued a stern warning to those supporting the resurgence of the outlawed Mungiki group, saying his administration will not allow any operations that will trouble the peace in the country. Further, he called out the opposition, blaming them for using the outlawed group for political reasons. Rodam Batiani with that.
The alleged resurgence of the Mungiki gun sectors caused jitters among many. Today, President William Ruto sternly warned that his administration will not condone illegal groups under his administration. Speaking in Kirinyaga County, the president laid the blame of the alleged group's comeback on the opposition.
Hatuwezi kuruhusu vikundi haramu. I want to say, na nataka niseme, Wale viongozi wetu wa upinzani wanajaribu kutueleza ya kwamba wanataka ati warudishe Mungiki, ati wakuje waanze mambo ya bangi, ati wakuje waanze kutoa wananchi ushuru isiyo halali, ati wakuje waangaishe kina mama wetu. Mimi nataka niwaambie wale viongozi wa upinzani, please, good people, kama mnafikiri hii Mungiki ni kitu ya maana.
Wapi? Kweli ama uongo? Sasa vijana wetu wale wako na nguvu tegemeo letu, wale wengi wanakunywa wanalala kwa mtaro. Wale wengine wameoa juzi, kuliko kulala juu ya kitanda wanalala chini. Sasa governor, tumeanza kusaidiana na wewe kumaliza pombe hapa ndio tupate watoto, tupate baraka.
In a statement, however, the Azimio coalition threw back the blame to the government, saying the alleged gang is made up of youth experiencing failed promises of the Kenya Kwanza administration. Azimio further calling on the government to restore failed programs like Kazi Mtaani. The president's remarks came after the opposition slammed the government for allegedly persecuting Maina Njenga, who is an ex-leader of the gang. Rodambatiani, TV 47.
And a section of members of parliament or members of county assembly caused a scene while trying to protest the suspension of Kanyanyani ward representative Grace Nduta. The members led by Maragua Member of Parliament Mary Waithera, Muranga woman representative Betty Maina and others pitched camp at the gate, preventing the MCAs from leaving the assembly after their session efforts by police to disperse the protesting MPs were futile as two parties charged at each other. That is in Muranga.
The members of the county assembly were protesting the suspension of Kanyanyani ward representative Grace Nduta. They camped outside the Muranga County Assembly, demanding an audience with the MCAs who wanted to leave after their session. The members of parliament have said the suspension was not fair, considering the people had elected Grace Nduta to lead them.
Wakachagua MCA wao. Ni nani ako na hiyo right kama si koti kutoa mtu kwa county kwa miezi minne? Hiyo ni haki.
They are awaiting the direction and decision of the UDA Party Secretary General, hoping that the rule of law will supersede what they call individual gain.
Secretary General to the UDA Party is coming. Na tutagojea hatua zenye zitatolewa na taratibu zake ndio tujue kama tunapatiana barua ya kusema we have a peaceful demonstration.
Vera Alberta, TV 47.
IGAD member states need to harness Africa's blue economy potential to give Africa the much-needed sustainable growth in economic and social development areas. This was the key sentiment at Tuesday's opening of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development IGAD 4-day Blue Economic Knowledge Share Workshop in Mombasa. And the IGAD conference was opened by the chairperson of the Council of Governors, that is Blue Economy Committee, Governor Issa Timami, and Mombasa Governor Abdul Swamad Nasir. It brings together experts from IGAD member states to discuss on ways to pull the potential of Africa's blue economy.
Contribute to the Africa's sustainable economic progress, and it should contribute to the development of our continent overall. The IGAD member states, and we are happy that we are represented, have a great blue economy potential that is generally underutilized. And as we had, the human body, 70% is made of blue. The entire world, 70% of the landmass is blue, and therefore we need to focus and capitalize on harnessing that dividend.
The blue economy carries with it extraordinary promises for our region. Our wetlands, oceans, lakes, rivers are not merely bodies of water. They are deposits of untapped potential. waiting to be utilized. This potential is particularly evident in the areas of small-scale fisheries and aquatic biodiversity. Small-scale fisheries are a vital source of livelihood for our coastal and lakeside communities, providing nourishment, income, and a sense of cultural identity.
The National Assembly Tuesday approved the nomination of Noordin Haji as the new Director General of the National Intelligence Service, NIS, after the committee found him eligible for appointment as a state officer and has the required education, as Chichi Josephine details.
Thank you, honorable members.
Former Director of Public Prosecutions Noordin Haji is on his way to head the country's intelligence service after the National Assembly's Committee on Defense, Intelligence and Foreign Relations gave his nomination for appointment a nod.
Honorable members, I now put the question, which is that taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Defense, Intelligence and Foreign Relations in its report on the vetting of a nominee for the appointment as Director General of the National Intelligence Service, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 6 June 2023, and pursuant to Section 7(3)(b) of the National Intelligence Service Act 2012, this House approves the appointment of Mr. Nuruddin Mohammed Haji, OGW CBS, as the Director General of the National Intelligence Service. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? No. The ayes have it.
In a report tabled before Parliament Tuesday, the committee dismissed all complaints against the outgoing DPP, saying the appointment had met the required threshold and was also in accordance with the law.
Mr. Speaker, I want to put forward that on record that this is the person who will make sure that this country is safe and secure, and I have no doubt, in accordance with the report that has been brought by the committee, that he is a man who has the capacity and the capability, and I urge the House to approve him, Mr. Speaker, so that he can go and do his work.
The report read that the procedure used to arrive at the nominee accords with Section 7, Clause 2 of the National Intelligence Service Act No. 28 of 2012, which provides that the President shall nominate a person for appointment as the Director General and submit the name of the nominee to the National Assembly.
And pursuant to Section 7(3)(b) of the National Intelligence Service Act 2012,
President William Ruto on Thursday, May 18, 2023, communicated the name of the nominee for appointment to the position of Director General of the NIS to the Speaker for approval by the National Assembly.
Thank you, honorable members.
The committee also argued that Haji is eligible for appointment as a state officer and has the required education.
And I can see that the officer that has been nominated for this job is a distinguished officer, Mr. Speaker, who has served in the service very well.
After his nomination, aggrieved parties filed petitions challenging his suitability on different grounds, some citing his withdrawal of high-profile cases involving allies of President William Ruto in recent months. However, the committee dismissed all petitions on the grounds that they failed to exhaust all legal avenues of ousting him as the DPP.
The first one is
Haji's name will now be forwarded to President Ruto for gazettement. Chichi Josephine, TV47.
And President William Ruto has affirmed that the health function will remain a devolved function. Speaking in Kerugoya, the head of state said the health function has been managed best under the county's mantle and that it is not about to change anytime soon. On Monday, Health CS Susan Nakumecha echoed the same sentiments, dismissing critics who are criticizing county governments for the poor management of the vital role.
Speaking in Kerugoya, President William Ruto responded to critics who are calling on the national government to centralize the health function, saying the function has never been managed better.
Najua kuna mjadala mkubwa Kenya. Kuna watu wanasema hii health function irudishwe kwa national government. Kuna wengine wanasema haijafanyika sijui namna hii. Kuna wengine wanasema namna hii. I want to assure the people of Kenya that the health function will be better managed, has been better managed by our counties That is how it's going to be going forward. Sisi tunaunga mkono, mimi ninaunga mkono, serikali ya Kenya inaunga mkono kazi inayofanyika katika counties hasa kwa mambo ya afya.
On Monday, Health CS Susan Nakhumicha echoed the same sentiments, saying the president has no intention of changing the constitution as far as the mandate of the counties and the national government is concerned.
No, our role is very clear. The president himself has pronounced himself on this matter. I don't know why it really bothers Kenyans, or some people would want to imagine that he wants to take up that role. No. It is spelled in the Constitution. And he has said he would be the last person to start asking for a review of the Constitution at the moment. Therefore, we shall continue doing our roles and responsibilities as spelled out in the Constitution. And this is not the first conversation I'm having about UHC. It is a new thing, so we must get it right.
Father Nakhumicha said the national government will be training the county governments on UHC in preparation of its launch in the coming days.
A meeting planned with COG. This meeting has been planned for quite some time now, and it was planned by my office. Why? We are educating the county governments on how we want to roll out UHC. The roles and responsibilities of the county government on matters healthcare is clear. It is spelled out in the Constitution. The role of the national government is clear, spelled out in the Constitution. One of our roles is training and capacity building. And that is exactly what we want to do. That as we roll out UHC, we train and capacity build all stakeholders involved in healthcare provision. And county government is our key partner in service delivery on matters health.
Zainab Mohammed, T47.
School heads have called on the government to review capitation funds in both primary and secondary schools. In stakeholders meeting with Parliament Education Committee, head teachers and principals recommended that the government increases capitation funds following the inflation and high cost of living. He further advocated for registration of learners in upbeat schools, as Andreen Kilemi details.
We did a memorandum that was presented to the Presidential Working Party.
Head teachers associations have today presented their recommendations to the government on capitation of school funds in a meeting with members of parliament from the Parliamentary Education Committee. The Kenya Secondary Heads Association, Kenya Primary School Head Teachers Association, the Special Needs Unit, as well as the Kenya National Alternative Providers for Basic Education Training Upbeat Schools, have appealed to the national government to increase the capitation funds from the current 22,244 shillings for secondary schools and 1,420 for primary schools.
In the new budget that is going to be passed on capitation, almost 1 million children will be left out. Those are gaps that need to be discussed. If this 1 million children will be left out, how will they be handled in terms of capitation? Issues of policies that have been there, especially on upbeat schools, and the policies are not being implemented. Yeah? When the children in those schools are not part of capitation, who therefore handles their educational needs, teachers, the infrastructure, and the rest.
National Chairman Kenya Secondary School Association Kahi Indimuli said the funds provided currently are not enough to run schools following the inflation and high cost of living.
The time has come that we need to start looking at what we call tariffs, special tariffs for institutions. When we are talking of the other types of subsidies, I think we need to subsidize some tariffs for water, tariff for electricity, for institutions.
National Chairman Special Schools Peter Sitienei further advocated for the increment of funds to the special needs institutions, saying the schools require more resources than regular schools.
Tunahitaji what you call differentiated unit cost. Differentiated unit cost kwa hiyo ni kimombo, lakini kwa Kiswahili ni kwamba tunataka mtoto wa mwenye ako na mahitaji ya pengine asikii, pengine masikio, aangaliwe na pesa yani mahitaji yake yaangaliwe vizuri na itumike, yani yakisho kwamba anapata. Yule mwenye ako na pengine viungo vyake viko na shida pia aangaliwe na ile mahitaji yake ipate kwamba kukidhiwa.
Last week, the government released 24 billion shillings capitation fee to public schools, with principals and other education stakeholders saying the money was insufficient to cater for huge debts incurred. Andrin Kilemi, TV 47.
Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka wants the stalemate bedeviling bipartisan talks resolved for the posterity of the nation. Speaking at Mumboni Secondary School during commissioning of the school dormitory, Kalonzo said that both Azimio and Kenya Kwanza dialogue teams ought to establish neutral grounds since IEBC's election was critical to the national integration.
Tutafute mikakati hata kama ni kurudi kwa hiyo mazungumzo, turudi kwa mazungumzo ili commission hiyo isiwe kitu ya Kenya Kwanza peke yao. Commission ya kusimamia uchaguzi wa miaka ijayo haiwezi, na sasa hivi even worse kunafanyika ile kuna boundaries commission, ni kazi yao kutafuta mipaka ya maward. Sijui ward ya hapa iko kiasi gani mheshimiwa MCA, wards ambazo zinaweza kuongezwa, constituencies ambazo zinaweza kuongezwa. Hiyo ni kazi ya commission hiyo ya electoral boundaries commission. So we have to look for a way. Na mnajua tulikuwa tumesema pia waandike barua nyingine kusema ile nyungu ya matokeo mahali iliingia ihifadhiwe mpaka waje wakubaliane kama kutafunguliwa ama hakutafunguliwa. Hiyo nyungu kama itafunguliwa ama itafunguliwa. Lakini bado sasa mambo haya yakazambaratika. Sasa hivi kuna standoff. Kuna standoff between KK na Azimio. Mimi na maoni yangu ni kwamba hiyo standoff ifanywe jia kila juu chini. Hiyo standoff iishe aswa kwa sababu ya swala hili nyeti la kuanzisha na kuwa na tume mpya, tume ya IEBC mpya na mwenyekiti mpya. Kwa sababu hiyo hatuwezi kuachilia KK peke yao.
Clauses in the bill. Legislators will later today debate on the amendments before its third and final reading.
Following a prolonged wait, the Finance Bill report is eventually presented to Parliament by Molo MP Kimani Kuria. The report, of significant importance, includes proposals for amendment to the contentious clauses within the bill.
A unanimous decision made by the committee. And remember, the Committee of Finance and National Planning has members of Parliament from across the political divide. So it's good to know that both members from either political formations, from all political formations, have agreed that, in our view, after listening to Kenyans, this is the amendment finance bill, which is going to be good to turn around our economy, to solve the issues of raising revenue, expanding our tax debt, and spurring economic development, especially by many of the incentives that are put here on manufacturing and job creation.
Leaders allied to the Kenya Kwanza faction have expressed their confidence in the passing of the bill, despite public uproar on over-taxation.
That 16% VAT from 8% will help government raise about 56 billion shillings a year. You can imagine how much 56 billion shillings can do to unlock all those stalled road projects.
We have now proposed in the bill to go green energy and incentivize other sectors as alternatives to fuel consumption. For example, we have now zero-rated biofuel energies as an alternative solution to our cooking. We have incentivized, we have zero-rated LPG gas. We have zero-rated APG cylinders.
According to those in support of it, contrary to the perception that the bill is set over common mwananchi, some key tax exemptions have also been made, including the tax on liquefied petroleum gas.
Rather than creating disorder and chaos on the floor of the House, let them bring their intellect and come and debate. This is a house of debate, and we are ready, we are prepared to debate with them and convince Kenyans that there are numerous positives in this bill.
I would like to urge Kenyans to not only listen to the hype that is out there. We would wish that when the media is telling this story, as they talk about finance that is raising some taxes, they should also tell us about the 21 odd taxes that shall be reduced. We should also be hearing the whole conversation around starting on a saving journey as a.
And that is why we said we are going to treat digital content creators just like all the other professionals at one standard rate withholding tax of 5%.
On the other hand, Azimio leaders have vowed to take it to the streets if the bill is passed, while castigating the Kenya Kwanza government for allegedly forcibly imposing taxes on Kenyans without considering their plight.
So we are not going to help the Kenya Kwanza people legitimize an illegitimate process. Yes, by coming up with the cosmetic amendments, which are futile, futile, if you may ask me, because they will not see the light of the day.
Their nature to threaten demonstrations, and that's why I'm saying I invite them to an intellectual debate on the provisions that are contained in the finance bill.
Once the bill has undergone the third reading, a final vote will be conducted in Parliament. If there will be a successful passage of the bill, through the vote it will proceed to receive the presidential assent, marking the final step before it becomes law. Flora Limuke, TV 47.
Now, as the 2023-2024 finance year budget is expected to be presented in Parliament this Thursday, education and health sectors are the biggest winners in President William Ruto's 3.6 trillion budget. The budget will be Ruto's first since his September 2022 inauguration. And as Micah Gungo reports, junior secondary schools will receive 28 billion shillings from 9 billion shillings, while TVETs will receive 28 billion shillings and of course a 5 billion shilling increase for the 2022-2023 financial year.
President William Ruto's 3.6 trillion shillings budget for the financial year 2023-2024 projects increased funding in key sectors including education and health. The budget, set to be presented in Parliament on Thursday this week by Treasury Cabinet Secretary Njuguna Ntengo, will be Ruto's first since his September 2022 inauguration. In the budget, the Education Ministry is among the largest beneficiaries expected to receive extra funding for junior secondary schools. The Higher Education Loans Board, Technical and Vocational Education and Training, and the School Feeding Program. HELB allocated 11 billion in the 2022-2023 financial year will receive over double the amount, totaling to 30 billion shillings. JSS will receive 28 billion shillings from 9 billion shillings, while TVETs will receive 28 billion shillings, a 5 billion shillings increase from the 2022-2023 financial year. President William Ruto's government allocated 4.9 billion shillings from 3.9 billion shillings in the last financial year to boost school feeding programs in drought-hit regions. The Ministry of Health will receive 19 billion shillings, more than the 122 billion shillings allocated in former President Uhuru Kenyatta's last budget. President William Ruto also kept his promise and commitment to complete transport infrastructural projects Uhuru initiated. As such, the government will pump in 250 billion shillings on existing road projects. The government also plans to spend 268 billion shillings on value chains that will support delivery of bottom-up transformation agenda. The budgetary allocation will target 5 key pillars under agricultural transformation: micro and small medium enterprises, housing, healthcare, as well as the digital superhighway and creative industry. In the financial year of 2023-2024 budget estimates, agriculture has been earmarked 64.6 billion shillings, out of which 3.2 billion shillings will be used for the Agricultural and Rural Inclusive Growth Project. 8.3 billion will be used to develop and strengthen the value chain in the sector, while 517 million will be used to mitigate climate change. Mike Kagwango, TV 47, Nairobi.
That story by Mike Kagwango is one of the stories that form the basis of the conversation this morning. And before we get to it, I will take a quick moment to introduce the gentleman that I have on set. Let me take a quick short break and come back and to the discussion. Right next to me is Peter Mushendu, a friend of this show, a friend of TV47. We are in the cycle of, circulation of money and basically the economy of the country. And so in our own specific areas.
We are domestic economics.
Yes, we are domestic. And that
manage our houses.
Yeah? Yes. So
our
I think
business, our parties.
That's good. So I think we are as well, supposed to be discussing this. It is not supposed to be left for the economy. So we come back and expound more on that after this break. And gentlemen, we are back to the conversation. Sometimes I like looking at the newspapers to guide us to the conversation as well. Well, based on the stories that have been captured, because basically they are the same ones that are making headlines, and perhaps what it is that, the person who's watching us wishes to hear us highlight. First of all, let's take a moment to appreciate faith and also what it is that the president declares. That once, when we have these athletes and they have carried the flag high, let us give them, credit, let us appreciate them in a good way so that we also do not lose many of them to other countries because they feel like they've not been compensated. They feel like they have not been appreciated as should be. That is one of the stories that finds itself across all the papers in celebration of Faith and the fact that she's taken up this mantle and looking forward to another one.
Well, I think the president has demonstrated that indeed being an athletee in the country is something that can actually give you a living, because I remember about 3 weeks ago, I was on social media ranting about how the winner of the Kenya Premier League was not given a single coin. I was looking at it that if you are preparing for a match, if Gor Mahia or AFC Leopards was preparing for 3 matches, they would require as much as almost $1 million shillings to be fully prepared. But you find that a team has played almost over 30 games and there is no monetary compensation for the same. It begs the question on how much we appreciate our sportsmen. But I want to appreciate His Excellency the President for starting this, because this was not a one-time off. He has said that any athlete who breaks the world record will now be receiving 5 million shillings.
Yeah.
I think for me that is a motivation. In fact, in the upcoming Diamond Leagues and other meets, world marathons and what have you, I am expecting Kenyans to start setting standard in breaking the world records, because there is a motivation that if today I go out there and I break a record, I will come and have a moment with the president and get a monetary pack out of it. So I think for me that the president has set a very good precedence. I want to believe that the sport minister, the Honorable Ababu Namwamba, will now focus to the entire Department of Sports, because you imagine how proud we have been of our rugby team, especially the rugby sevens. Where did they disappear to? What became of Kenya Premier League? When I was a young boy in primary school at class 7, I could tell you every team in the Premier League that was playing. I could tell you the fixture out of my mind. So I think what the president is doing, he is going to ignite passion for sports, passion for athletics, that people now know the state is very clear in terms of making sure that they professionalize athletics, sports, and those who are participating in it are going to get value and they are going to make a living out of it. So to the president and his team, congratulations for ensuring that you motivate Kenyan athlete, one of the discipline sport that we enjoy as a nation, and we pride ourselves in reading out there. And it's also important to thank Omanyara. He is now the fastest man in Africa. He clocked, I think he was defeated with an eighth of a second. And we cannot go without saying that for the first time, he is motivating Kenyans that they can also make it in the short distance. So therefore, to the president and his team, this is the way to go.
This is the way to go. Certainly a form of motivation, and maybe these conversations or these complaints of, well, we're not excited to even go back home because we're not well received, are probably going to be a game of the past, and we'll see many, taking up the challenge and, just taking us up and up the map.
Much as I would like to appreciate the president for taking that bold step, which is something we've really been waiting for, I would challenge the sports minister to come up with a policy, a reward system policy. It's an African, in Africa we don't appreciate what is good, we only like what is negative, and that's what we would support. What if we would put it in terms of a policy, so that for it not to look as if it was just for this game, and then next time when there's a lot of political activities or when he's busy, that thing is washed away.
And knowing Kenyans, they would even bring the conversations of tribe they're in, and you ask yourself, why?
What if we would do it to be a bill that can come in parliament? We would put a budget in such a way that thing would last. It wouldn't be political. It wouldn't be one-off. It would still be there even if we have challenges as a country, because there is need for us to support the creative economy. There's need for us to support the talents. And one of the things that I've been thinking about is how many people join the university in Kenya? What percentage of people join the university? Where do all the others go? Whereas we have a huge youth population that is highly talented, that we can convert it into talanta hela. Through a policy and without all these sideshows and what have you, we come up with a bill and a law that would come and put it, that would write on the soil that it is true now, so that when an athlete starts from where he's going to start, he knows, if I hit this place, it is a policy, it's a bill, it's a law, and we finish the whole process in such a way we know where this person will go and get the reward, we know exactly the exact date and such kind of a thing.
All right.
Which is something.
And Dr. would want to view this as a decree, a declaration that then automatically becomes law as declared by the president. But perhaps, Gashoka here would have a point. Just how then do we substantiate this? That because we all acknowledge that sometimes we'd have these athletes landing in the country, the president is not around. So who then actualizes what is this or what it is that he has, declared? How then do we make sure that this is not just a one-time game, but something that is going to be more or less like a policy to cushion and to appreciate our athletes all year, all time?
See, government-wise, I would use one word to define their reaction. Sometimes I caution them again is populism.
Okay.
And another element of opportunistic populism, where people would want to identify with whatever, any success they see around for political perception.
Okay.
But when it goes down to proper frameworks, because I can only tell the goodwill or intention of a government, if they have a goodwill to improve a specific sector by their manifesto and by their policies. Because education as it stands right now, we have an education system that actually is an affront to talent development. And they've not done much. It's still focused much more on academia. If you look at their push for exams, these are the environments or the cultures that have inhibited talent development, because sometimes most of us Kenyans, like now Faith and Wanyala, they have defied the odds and still emerged victorious in the midst of difficult circumstances. Because if you are to look at the success that is being celebrated, it didn't just begin today, because Faith has been in the field actually for a while. And she's run and failed. She's not succeeded sometimes. And it's taken her resilience. And again, it's very serious odds. Even, again, the same government's policies.
Yeah.
Remember, the previous government could even sell off their kids and all those, could reward the cronies to travel for Olympics at the expense of athletes. Yeah, so looking at the policy framework to develop and nurture, it's easy to celebrate that which has developed itself. And that's why I call them populist opportunist. But putting framework to develop and nurture, because we are looking at Kenya in the next 5 years, the next 10 years, in the next 50 years, where should athletes or even talent development, we're talking about you just mentioned about the rugby, sports, and then we have soccer. Actually, the talent around this geographic location is enormous. We happen to be blessed based on our geographical location, the weather, and even our nutrition. We happen to really raise individuals who have enormous potential where talents are concerned. So what policy framework are we putting in place as governments? What is in the curriculum, education curriculum, that we can say that this one has developed talent? Because when you take an athlete to school, they'll be required to either be doctors, be engineers, for them to be acknowledged by the education system, failure to which they'll be branded failures. Because without certificate here, even in political field, we cannot be clear to run for an office. Emphasis is in the certificates. And this emphasis on the certificate actually is killing talent development. Because not everybody are gifted or have strength in academia. So if we have an holistic, individualized, and that is what we've always emphasized, and I think that's why some people are identifying us with alternative education curriculums like homeschooling community, where we emphasize on individualizing education. And when you individualize it, then we will bring out so much faith within our community, because the diversity in this geographical location, you cannot fathom. But people like Faith, oh wow, she is another one, another level, breaking 2 world records within 2 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah, we give it to her, and I think is a celebration that is worth carrying forward.
And you know, the reason why I thought it wise for us to look at this briefly is because I remember Gashoka also highlighting that sometimes we tend to celebrate so much of negativity, and for a moment we forget what is positive within ourselves. And we would wake up every morning and complain about the papers, but at least there's something to smile. And so for this champion, these champions, I think it's important that as a country we celebrate. Before we talk about the bipartisan, which actually have stalled, the conversation on the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, a person who's vied will tell you that it's very, very important. We have a constituency right now that doesn't have a member of parliament, and the Constitution declares that then we should have carried a by-election, but because of the stalling of this process, then we are here. Allow us to briefly look at the budget that is anticipated. But even before it gets to that level, finally, the document was presented to the National Assembly yesterday night. And we have witnessed that these members of parliament are supposed to go through a 500-page document and then debate on it this morning. That would be, I don't know how they managed to do that, but all the same, let's just assume they banned the midnight oil, just trying to peruse through. And maybe some of them have interacted with the document before. And so the few adjustments perhaps would be said to them, will be presented to them, and then they will decide on what to vote in or not. What do you expect? What do you anticipate in terms of adjustments? And what do you make of the adjustments that have evidently been made so far in terms of what it is that Kenyans had proposed and the government or the president to bow down to the pressure, you'd want to call it that way, in making sure that at least every Kenyan is happy about the document?
Of course, with the new constitution, the budget making process became very elaborate.
Yeah.
And I think in February, government presented the budget policy statement, which eventually was passed by Parliament in March to pave way for the government to now bring the final draft and also prepare the finance bill that has become the talk of the town. But what makes me sad about this budget, it is that, Linda, we intend to spend around 1.5 trillion in our debt.
Yeah.
We are going to spend about, if the proposals are passed, we supposed to spend about 755 billion on the interest that we have incurred on our loans. 775 billion is going to be interest on our loans. And then we supposed to spend another 850 billion paying the principal debt. So that brings up to about 1.5 trillion that is going to go to loan repayments. And when you see the president trying everything he can to ensure that we do not overborrow, and we also do not commit ourselves into very expensive loans, it is because unless we do austerity measures, and you see austerity measures comes with, one, the government has a challenge of curbing the, the currency expenditure. And number two, Kenyans must also be willing to be able to pay tax. And I've told you, Kenyans are looking forward to get better housing, get better education, get better health services. But I've said, and I will say it again, that in those countries where this has succeeded, most of those countries have declared not paying tax or evasion of tax as a capital crime. That you can be jailed for life for not paying tax. You and that person who killed somebody yesterday or the day after, you are on the same level, because the moment you do not pay your taxes, you deny the rest of the people who are paying what is called development. And therefore, as much as we want to put government on its toes to be able to apply austerity measures and ensure that we do not misuse government resources, we as Kenyans must also be very ready to be able to play our part in making sure that we contribute, because government, I've told you, gets their money in 3 ways. They can collect revenue from the public, they can go and take a loan somewhere, and they might get donations from the development partners. That is the only way government is able to fund its expenditure. And therefore, the correction of tax is an integral part on how government is able to finance its budget. I told you, half of those people who have been registered as taxpayers in this republic are declaring new returns. But when you pick their statement, monthly statement, M-Pesa statement, and others, you'll be shocked at how much money is passing through those people's hands. Therefore, I think this budget, it has constrained government, because it's sad the Honorable William Ruto has risen to power just about when most of our concession loans are maturing. Today, you know, we have discussed with you, we have never been able to correctly point how the Eurobond was useful to Kenyans. But the same has matured and needs to be paid. And that is the responsibility of government. Most of the things that were procrastinated by the previous administration have gone to a point where you cannot ignore them. You need to look on how, because if today we want to become insolvent,
Yes.
to become solvent as a country, we will need to restructure our debt payments. We will need to restructure how we borrow our money, because I have always insisted that borrowing has never been a problem. It is how we spend the money that we get out there. How do we get to spend our own we have taken from the Africa Development Bank? How do you spend our own you get from China? That is what makes all the difference.
I'll come back to you on the very same note. But before then, and I think this one a valid point, because Kenyans then are asking, it's fine, have you sealed all the loopholes? Do we have the guarantee that when we borrow, then this money is going to be put to good use? Do we have all the guarantee that all those ones that have been evading tax, then in this case, the government has put watertight ways of making sure that they do not evade tax before you increase the bracket? And so I'll come back to you on that. But perhaps we would have started by, and I know we can't unpack it to conclusion, but perhaps, just looking at the, upper bit of things, 2022-2023, budget in comparison to the proposals that we have today. And we have to eagerly wait to see what it is that, the main budget man is going to tell us tomorrow. But we already have the proposal, we already have the estimates as they sit. If we are to look at 2022, 2023, and now look at where we are headed, what do you make of that? And you being a person who's been in business.
First of all, I think we are going through a very tough time as a country due to the economic challenges that we had, just coming from like, for example, the hospitality industry has not yet recovered from COVID. We're coming from a very tough political engagement. We thank God there was peace. But the cost of living is high, which is something I appreciate, because everybody is appreciating it. And I think people, even the government, through the presidency, they have accepted that this is a thing that we need to work on. But one of the things that maybe I would like to touch on the impact of the economy and add on something else. I don't think the only means of raising money for government are only 3. During Kibaki's time, they would sell corporates. There are corporates which the government has. It can offload some of the shares.
This goes to you, Mushendwe, huh?
Yes, it can offload some of the shares. The other one is PPP, that is private public partnerships. There's so much they can do on that, which is highly accommodative. T-bills and all the others, which are controlled by monetary policies and what have you. What I would call on this government is public consultation. That is involving the business community, involving the private sector, involving consultants, involving governance experts.
But you'll agree with me that this involvement has been there extensively.
I would differ a little bit, because during Kibaki's time, actually he's the one who started this conversation. Every quarter, he would have a round table with the private sectors, the likes of Kenya Social Manufacturers, KEPSA, There were so many associations that would meet. They would do policy, they would discuss the budget before those proposals were even brought to public. They would, even before they were brought in public, they would discuss, they would vet the proposals, they would add a lot of their ideas. They would even contribute on which sectors are supposed to be taxed. There was a robust consultation between government and the private sector. So they would look at check and balances, which is something that has not happened in this budget. What we've had, which is an opportunity that we've seen, that we need to grow, or we need to expand the mandate or the definition of public participation. Because we've reached at a point where we're getting political statements that that budget will pass without even a comma being removed. So what was the purpose of public participation? What was the purpose of requesting for our contribution, if that is a predetermined position? And I am looking at a future where the presidency will be mandated, will be put to task to come and defend these budgets in parliament. We have a robust engagement on such kind of a thing. I'm looking at a future. When I was looking at Molo MP, KK, yes, when he was talking about if we remove one thing from the budget, maybe the 3% housing, we reduce this to 1.5, we have to look for a way. We have not been told, the proposals are there, we need to raise this money. We have not been told where this money is going to. We've not been told which deficit is going to cover. There is no proper, I don't know what is being hidden there. Whereas in the spirit of public participation, right, Meona, we want to be told everything, the nitty-gritties of each and every budget. We want the business community to be involved. We also want, for example, I'll give you an example, like the way you said, the hotel industry or maybe the liquor industry is celebrating that there is no proposal on increase. But there we have a proposal, 15% on advertisement. It's also going to have an impact on liquor. The previous government increased every year the cost of liquor, every financial year. In fact, at one point, I think within 10 months, yeah, they increased the taxes on liquor through Excess Duty Act, through budget and what have you, 3 times in 1 year. This made legal liquor to be very expensive at the expense of counterfeits. Right. I'll give you some figure which is very surprising, and it came from WHO, that 45% of the liquor that is in the market is illicit and counterfeit. So the whole market share. So the purpose of increasing the quantity of taxes that we're supposed to collect, taxes started reducing. And you can even see major corporates, their profits and the taxes have started decreasing, right, because of that consistent increase without consultation. Okay. But if the business community, through their associations and leadership, would be brought, like during Kibaki's time, the round table, the consultation that was there, the business community can identify so many areas that taxes would be increased, that taxes would be suspended, and we can raise revenue and we can do business.
Daktari.
I think the level of political, impunity the political actors, especially in this geographical location, exert. Sometimes I get a bit uncomfortable when we blame citizens, because when you talk about taxation, actually we are quite overtaxed. And the return of the taxes we are paying is just seeing people with fat bellies and the same old stories, huge personal properties that you didn't even understand, and the Cayman Island is stuffing our money. All these things are the things that actually have been scathing the citizen when it comes to the manner in how the governments are being managed and run. And regarding the budget, it is easy to be boxed, and you think within the box and analyze within the box and intellectualize the box without thinking outside the box. And I think that sometimes becomes a major challenge, because you see guys dancing at the tunes, and some of these tunes are not just local tunes, but some are also external tunes whose interests are clear, which is to keep this geographical location a consumer-based market where we develop and raise slaves intelligent slaves, who can argue from morning to evening without looking at the solution of the things that are affecting them. Because the advent of zero industrialization in certain geographical locations, especially where we have enormous resources, didn't begin today. You know, when Smith was in charge of Rhodesia, before it was called Zimbabwe, by our uncle, the late, you realize their minerals and even their currency. Their minerals had controlled prices. The currency of Zimbabwe, it was competitive with the dollar. But when the Queen's brother, Lonro, managed to bring their own, I could call it cartel, Uncle Mugabe started very well. And they always use this bait of, we will give you loan, we will give you aid, and you just need to implement these policies. Of course, Uncle Mugabe was given loans and aid. Unfortunately, he went to France and built big hotels. And what eventually, cut the long story short, what happened to Zimbabwe's economy? Actually, if you wanted to go buy a bread in Zimbabwe, you'd carry a lot of notes just to go and buy bread. And these things have not changed, the same patterns. Yesterday I was interacting with the DRCs and the minerals deposit in DRC. Everybody knows about the richness and the wealth of DRC. But do you know how much DRC currency is against a dollar? $1 is equivalent to 2,350 francs. Why would the DRC's currency, with those enormous resources, be that? Yeah, because there are individuals who have apportioned specific areas of this geographical location. Imagine even Kenya now has stronger currency than DRC. And what does Kenya have? Cartels. And when you're talking about a budget, everybody just think about what they want to get from others. Is like thieves, instead of what you can make and what you can produce. Because if you work, you need to eat. We currently, I think it's NTV, Nation Media, that said that Kenya is yet to access its IMF loan allocation.
And I was looking at some of the prospects of what really goes into these processes of, having a relationship with IMF.
That's my point, because this is they can't access it until they implement certain policies. And then look at the policy measures that they're being asked to implement. Taxation. And each moment you raise taxes, what happens? Of course, you're chasing away manufacturing, you're chasing away production. Actually, you're kicking away your jobs. Because if you can't manufacture, you can't produce, then you can't employ. In other words, they're turning us into a consumer market. We have China Center now, who is selling cheaper products, even after shipment from China all the way to this place, than goods which are manufactured in industrial area. And eventually, companies are closing down. Why? Because you have a government, a cartel government, which is playing at the hand of this same system, and they're telling you they will pass it whether you like it or not. Remember the saying, whether you participate, and it's actually it's an up-bottom engagement. They're talking at us, and what do they forget? And that is the danger of impunity, and this is the folly of individuals who are occupying the offices, and that's what actually has led to their failures. Okay. And I think this platform where we engage the citizen to make the citizen understand their sovereign authority, their power, and how to exercise it. Because if the indirect a portion of the sovereign authority that we've given the government is not being implemented to our interest, actually is being turned to being to our accusation. Now they're accusing us that we need to pay taxes, like we've not been paying taxes, yet they are playing at the whims of external forces who actually are here to make sure that this geographical location has been turned into a supermarket economy.
I don't know why you declare that the government has failed already. We all understand that if the government fails today, we all have failed. So has it gotten to that level?
It's the cartels who are failing. Us as the government, we are firm here. It will not go.
Okay, we take a short break and then we come back on that very next. All right. We're okay? All right. Well, apologies for that. And this is what I was saying. Well, we all thought that the budget-making process is meant for the leadership. I think times have changed. What are the importance, or what is the importance of the budget-making process, and the importance of understanding it, and at what point are you involved in this process? You know, what are the economic problems that we are facing as a country, and how then does the budget come in to help us address the economic problems? You know, what are the stages of preparation? And this one has gone through all the, stages as declared by the Constitution. And tomorrow we are bound to get what it is that the 2023-2024 budget, the first Kenya Kwanza budget, would be like. And, valid points, valid lessons to pick from the previous budgets and from the previous years. And, these ones will be the guiding factors as to how we successfully manage the situation. Mushendu, you started by reminding us of the loans that have been incurred by the previous regimes and the fact that they have matured, and maybe the reason why we need to restructure and adjust the processes of debt in the country, how we need to manage all that. But then I asked this, perhaps that's the reason why Kenyans are quite involved in this one and saying, we are already overtaxed. This is where you can tax some more. Then they ask, why not expand the tax base? Why not address, all this that you speak of in terms of impunity, in terms of those ones that actually evade payment of tax and all that, and make sure that you seal the loopholes. And then from there, let's begin the conversation of, extending the bracket or having to tax Kenyans some more. But at this very point, you have not even told us or guaranteed us that the loopholes that were there have been sealed, that those ones that were evading tax, have been, they have been known, and, it's going to be a whole different thing in the next time that we're filing taxes, and so they won't file nil. And in this case, they will declare as should be. So if these ones have not been sealed, what is the point of taxing some more? What is the guarantee that there's going to be value for money and this money is going to be put to the right use?
Well, I've had my friend talking about consultation with the private sector.
Which you think has been done?
You see, the process, the budget-making process in this republic is very well anchored in the Constitution.
Yes.
And we are in June today, Rinda. The process of making this budget started on 18th of January, when the Treasury and the National Economic Planning brought the budget policy statement in Parliament. And that is where we started making the budget. The same policy statement was committed to the Departmental Committee on Budget, which is led by Kiharu Member of Parliament, Dede Nyoro. That process started, and that is when Kenyans were given an opportunity, including the private sector is talking about, to bring their input on the budget-making process. And the same budget policy statement was approved in March. Well, what we are receiving today, it's not the normal way you used to see during President Moi, where the Minister of Finance coming to read the budget was with a lot of fetters and what have you. It is a process that has taken time to get to where it is. Unfortunately so, people fail to work with the process when it started in January, and they just want to come and give their input when we are at the tail end of making this process. I'll tell you where we are today. That consultation is what introduced a very dangerous trend in our economy called subsidy, which has, without a doubt, been abused by both government and those who benefit from those subsidy. This conversation is talking about what got the fourth president and his administration to give tax reliefs to a tune of 600 billion to companies that are making big money, and they do not deserve to be given tax reliefs. This conversation is talking about are the same conversations that had us give the unga manufacturers 4 billion that we never saw the value for it. And therefore, I don't disagree with him that there has to be a conversation between government and private sector, which is majorly one of the benefactors of government in terms of tax collection. But any consultation must not be based on how we should allow private sector to make money without remitting money to government. Because this is my belief. We have introduced in our law something called export processing zones, special economic zones. We are working on county aggregation centers. These are places where if companies are going to operate from these centers and from these units, they are going to get a lot of reliefs in terms of tax, in terms of power, that is in terms of how much power will cost if they produce at the special economic zones or export processing zones. But I'll tell you this, when we talk about and we want to move politics around the issue of paying tax, I think that is the moment we start losing it. Because if the conversation of paying tax, we are not going to have one that is an honest conversation.
Yeah.
And I would ask you to compare the Kenyan taxation in Kenya against other African countries, and also compare the taxation in Kenya against the GDP in comparison to the same happening in other countries. And the truth of the matter is that as a country and as a nation, we have not risen to the occasion to be able to standardize, if not pay everything, to be able to standardize our taxation so that Kenyans actively participate in paying of tax and legitimately get the opportunity to question how government is using the resources. Because the truth of the matter, because that is something we cannot hide from, we need to rein on our recurrency expenditure as a nation.
Right.
And he has talked about the VAT on liquor being increased 3 times. The finance bill that is being tabled today by Moro Member of Parliament is seeking to take that authority from the Commissioner General of KRA, that he cannot just wake up and increase VAT on products. That finance bill is seeking to take that authority that if indeed KRA want to increase VAT, they will need to come back and legislate a law in Parliament that allows to do that, so that him and those other people in that business are not caught unaware that they wake up in the morning and they find the VAT on this thing has gone up. And therefore, you cannot have your cake and eat it. Because, Linda, we have been here. Those opposed to this government have said that this government should not increase the debt ceiling. That means this government should not borrow anymore. Those opposed in this government are now saying government should not increase tax. But as I've told you, today we have an obligation of 1.5 trillion in terms of debt repayment, that one part in interest, the other one on the principal debt, that needs to be taken care of. We have a responsibility as a government to deliver services to Wanjiko. We have a responsibility as a government to run this country. Then, when you come on TV today, you say that we should not increase the debt ceiling, and then come tomorrow and claim how Kenyans have been overtaxed and this should not be done. And then we have a loan repayment that is not as a result of this current government, is from previous successful government. What exactly do you want the government to do? You have to make up your mind. Do you want us to go and borrow? Do you want us to tax Kenyans? Because one of them has to take precedence over the other if government has to operate. And therefore, I am challenging those people who are now at the top of their voice, saying that this government has overborrowed, this government is overtaxing. What exactly do you want government to do to be able to render services to Kenyans?
We should ask Justice Juma, who also presented his bid to be president of this nation. And in that process, there is a manifesto. In that process, you have envisioned what you would wish to do for the country. And the point of campaign was largely on, economic emancipation. So perhaps he could be having.
And maybe the people behind these cameras and behind the studio should be able to take us through his manifesto, so that we can do a comparative analysis of his views then and his views now.
I'm here, you can get it straight from the horse's mouth.
Okay, from the horse's mouth, but of course we won't give you that much time for that. But yes, what would you expect for the government to do?
Yeah, because what are the other governments doing? And what are making other economies competitive? Why are other governments referred to as first world governments.
And I want to equate that argument with this report,
my point
that we were looking at
yes.
earlier, and it's in relation to that. Sorry for cutting you line or trail of thought. The Henley Private Wealth Migration Report 2023, produced by Henley and Partners in partnership with New World Wealth, tracks the conversation on wealth and the fact that it declares that we have $1 million panic why the super rich are dumping Kenya for other countries. And so perhaps just to equate that to his argument, what is this the other countries?
We are not living in isolation and we are not locked in a room with just UADA as a government so that we don't have best practices to learn from. But of course, we are not also going out there to copy-paste what others are doing. We have our own internal measures, and we know what we have and our strength, what we can work on and what we cannot work on. Yesterday, I spent a period of time with some of my friends from Israel, and we were trekking through various farms, and even learning how they are manufacturing and producing. Such a tiny geographical location, and they are farming and producing products even in the desert. And here, you have a volume of aquifer. Just the other time we realized it in Turkana, which has a very fertile land, if you've traveled to those geographical locations, which all you need to do is, when you talk about PPP, we have various experts, even in just borehole drilling. We can help you get that water out instead of spending time in the stadium praying for rain, which come and you can't even use it now that is around.
And the sad report is that then that becomes a problem right now.
I'm just addressing attitude. Yeah. So if that's the attitude of your government, when you're talking about development and manufacturing or production, what are they producing? You take them to Galana Kulalu, what have they done to it? They've ruined it. Sometimes you may call cartels government and you think you're talking about sane people. Because if things were working and functioning, even as we're giving tax and our taxes were used correctly, these will not be the stories. Even these borrowing or loans that we are paying, if those loans were used correctly, it is not a problem borrowing. The problem is, what are you using it for? Because if it went to people's pocket to buy elections and to get to the office, and you now have to fill that hole, and you're coming to cry to us, telling us, force us to help you fill the hole that you looted, I think it's just an insult to our faces. Yeah. So as we talk right now, the governments were producing. We have whatever it takes to produce and not even depend on taxes, if possible. If you were to just focus on even just specializing in one product, even if it is just even horticulture. Because here it grows natural, isn't it? You've not had them focusing or putting their emphasis on production. If anything, you hear that the things that they ought to have manufactured locally, like even fertilizer. Fertilizers we can make locally. Why do you have to go and buy it and tell us that, and some of these ones which are bought also come laced with the pest to make sure that you don't yield. Same sabotage, so that we remain dependent to the same forces from outside. So, when you're talking about growth, as a government, what would I do differently away from tax? I would focus much more on productions and markets. And even the remittance of Kenyans who are working outside, you've seen them putting efforts on that. How can you grow your currency if you can't even exchange? What are you exchanging? Your taxes? You can't grow an economy on a taxation. So you can't sit down here and be lectured on how we need to tax instead of focusing on what we need to produce, what we need to make, and how you need to nurture. We've just mentioned about talents here. And we are waiting for accidental manifestation of talents, and then we cling to that like that's the only one without proper sustainability. And these are the challenges that we are facing with poor governance and poor leadership. Because when you have poor leadership, their focus will be on the cook, what they want to eat, what the quick fix. Instead of talking about the next generation, they're busy talking about the next election. And these are the things that are actually stifling the economic growth of this geographical location. So I'm not talking about what we are not able to do. As we've been able, as Kenyans, we are resilient. The way we've even survived with this heavy taxation, and they are still even proposing more taxation, actually without even shame. And they are quick to accuse us, but when you challenge them to showcase to you what qualifies and brought them on this platform that they're now sitting on. If anything, I have warned them and I've cautioned them that in that office, you need also to survive on the rule of law. Because if you violate the rule of law, or you violate the constitution, anarchy begets anarchy. You saw the other time it was the government allowing cartels and vigilantes to attack people, even invade farms with the police at a distance, and you don't even see them responding. Now, they're beginning to accuse Mungikis, and when they get back to following the constitution, they're the first person to violate it. It's talk about the constitution providing mechanism or measures that people need to operate in. The government should be the first person when you're talking about formulation of your own government. Mm-hmm. Do we need a bloated government right now? What do you need the CAS for? If you needed them to operationalize the parastatals, that will make a lot of sense. Here, you've bloated the CASs, whose function is probably to operationalize those parastatals. And then on the other hand, another person is telling you know what, privatize these parastatals. You don't have the capacity or the know-how to handle them. So why are you hiring the CASs? Why are you even bloating it up?
I have the Deputy President trying to...
It is the same government that is sabotaging economic growth. And Kenya, we must call them out. If we allow them to go in this way, actually it will be a mess. And this impeding hole, this same president was the deputy president. Actually, it was his policy, it was his manifestos that they implemented with the Uhuru.
Maybe that's what
right now, following in this. At convenience, he wants to distance himself and start blaming some utopia that some demons were around borrowing on their behalf. Yeah, this guy earned a salary on our behalf. We paid him for the last 10 years. And here he is today, again now telling us that, let's make more messes so that again, in the next event, another person will be blaming this same vicious circles. It can't happen in our watch.
Well, interesting. Let's speak about the Kadogo economy before we close on this subject of, the budget, because we are all equally waiting. And I'm sure today we'll be glued on our TVs just to see what is going to play out in Parliament. And later on, looking forward to tomorrow. Kadogo economy. While we might call it Kadogo economy, and this one I will equate to the MSMEs, we all understand just how much it is critical in, driving the economy today. What do you make of it in terms of, the coming in of the new government, the proposals that have been presented, by the Finance Bill 2023, the budget that we are anticipating, and, having gotten the estimates as it stands so far? What are the possibilities that this Kadogo economy will thrive and survive to being big economies?
I think when you talk about MSMEs and Kadogo economy, I'm looking at numbers. I'm looking at how much we pay a casual laborer today. Maybe in the construction side, 500 shillings, 600, against the kind of inflation that we have, which is the highest ever this country has ever experienced. And I was doing some simple computation. If this person earns 600 shillings, the cost of unga is 200 shillings. I don't know, there is another one that we're being told based on where you buy it. But based on the research that we have done, that unga goes for 250 shillings. Okay. The cost of fuel, the cost of nayo mtungi ya gas. So I was looking at where are we headed as a country. And when we talk about taxation, I don't want to leave that conversation. Mm-hmm. Increasing the cost. Okay, first of all, let's define what is the essential of a tax. A tax is supposed to be simple. It's supposed to yield. It's supposed to be simple to administer, simple to pay, that kind of a thing. And increasing the cost of taxation has its own negative impact. We are becoming uncompetitive. And that's why you're seeing big farms. The other day I was looking at Bata on Monday, Bata Shoe Company. It was closed. 16,000 people went home. We're looking at the Kenya Association of Manufacturers.
We'll come to you, Moshendu.
The Kenya Association of Manufacturers is talking about increasing the cost of taxes. With this budget, we're going to lose 100,000 employees. When we look at maybe some things like PPP, or when you look at, we even hear in corporates in the floriculture, they're opting to leave this country. So we are becoming uncompetitive Now, let's talk about increasing the cost of taxes. I'm actually looking at those people with pay slips.
Yeah.
Majority of these people, in fact, were it not for President Uhuru when he was the finance minister, where they passed a limit of 66% or 67%. So if we go for that pay slip and still get more money from that person, what are you talking about as a country? These people, they are tied with loans. They are tied with obligations. We know the way we operate, our culture. Your salary is not your salary. Your family is there. Your grandmother is there. It's that kind of a thing. And that is why I'm talking about consultation with the private sector. Let me go back to our industry. And one of the proposals that we have for this government, if 45% of the liquor that is being sold out there is counterfeits and what have you, why don't we face it? Why don't we partner with the government? In fact, when we did our computation, we found that if we can reduce counterfeits by 20%, from that 45%, this government will be able to raise 23 billion every month in terms of taxes and in terms of even wealth creation and what have you. But when we talk about relaxing or not consulting the private sector, and I would say we were not consulted and we were not involved. And that is why, according to, this is my opinion, that's why I think the associations were taxed 30% of their business income. According to us, is silencing us, for us not to come out and defend our people or give a position. And I'm happy because the KEPSAs and CAMS and all the other associations which we partnered,
I've not been sad.
they've come up and given statements. So my question is one, that line of increasing taxes and calling on, I'll give you an example. The other day, someone told me that KRA is already training 200 spies. And they're somewhere in Nakuru, I don't know where they are, to come and, let me tell you, why are you forgetting that this is one of the reasons Azimio government failed? When Uhuru became so tough and started getting us in, they started, when, that is, of course, it was the Azimio Jubilee government. They started getting into our bank accounts, into our M-Pesa statement. And what was so funny, and this is the kind of suggestion we are requesting, they do not go for those people who have not paid taxes. No, they follow on us who are 100% compliant and look for loopholes there and here and there and use corrupt means to manipulate those people who are already paying taxes. Those people are already compliant.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying increment in taxes will make us to be uncompetitive. It will make so many corporates to close down and you're going to lose jobs.
For the records, Bata Managing Director Benson Okumu, in a notice Saturday, said that the company was conducting a normal maintenance shutdown, which is always done annually and especially on off-peak season. So we can't quite categorically say that it was a direct shutdown on many, losing their jobs. Allow us to take a short break, Mushendo, and then we come back to you. Slaps of this segment in studio. Ashoka is here, Justice Juma, as well as Peter Moshe. Do you want us to begin from that butter bit?
Yeah, I mean, at the rate at which we are consuming...
Butter the jam, or are you talking about the company?
No, butter bit.
The rate at which this country is consuming fake news is just alarming, because I come from Limuru. I have had a fortunate of also benefiting from butter, and I can tell you that the close down of 14 days in butter is a normal practice. It did not start last year or the year before then. It is a practice that has been there. Now, we have got quite a number of people who, I would say, for just being opposed to this government, they have become alarmist, and they would shout to the toppest of the... Because let me tell you, and I am challenging you today, anybody who has carried that story either on mainstream media or otherwise, I want him to show me one single employee that has come, one single employee has come on record to say that that is true. And therefore, I think for me is that as much as we want to cite that there might be difficulties with how companies are being run, let's also be factual that you do not have to destabilize 16,000 people who are employed by butter by shouting on social media and mainstream media that butter is closing down. Well, that is not the case. In fact, the MD has come out to refute those claims. And, 14 days is not like 2,000 years ago when Jesus came to the world. 14 days is, we are already done 7 days of they said 14 days. So they say that time is the balance of everything, and we only have 7 days remaining so that butter can resume work. And therefore, let's not base our argument on the untruths that are being told. And you have talked about him, and I keep insisting, they are talking about a conversation between government and private sector. There is nothing William Ruto has done for the last 7 months than have a consultation as late as I think almost 2 weeks ago. He had a conversation at Selena Hotel with the private sector.
And give it to him even during the time of campaign.
Yes, and therefore, the kind of conversation he is looking for, it is a conversation where they don't want to pay tax. And that's the truth. Let me give you an example.
You can't accuse
let me give you an example. And I'm not accusing. The government of Uhuru Kenyatta has given a tax relief almost 690 billion to companies who do not deserve it. He has given tax relief to the Devolution company that was printing money in this country. He gave tax relief to his own bank, NCBA, which in fact the merger between them and NIC Bank was not taxed as they should have been, because both Commercial Bank of Africa and NIC were not trading at the stock exchange. They were required to have paid the taxman over 1.5 billion shillings in that merger. They were not given. They have been given a tax relief into hundreds of billions that they do not deserve. These companies want to have a conversation where they want to force government to give subsidy, which is one of the most abused and means of corruption in government, which the Honorable William Ruto has eliminated. They want to have a conversation on how they will get handout out of government. And
but
the truth of the matter,
they are 100% compliant.
The truth of
those ones are the ones who are being taxed.
The truth of the matter is, if indeed a United Nations Habitat report is claiming that 45% of the RICA that is in the country is not legal RICA, then the responsibility and the onus on him and his organization, it is to identify, because I can tell you the biggest percentage of those selling that illegal liquor are members of his organization. Because, and that's why I said, you cannot have your cake
and eat it.
Okay. You want government to rein on tax and lower tax. You want us to bring and take out the illegal, illicit brew out of the market. You must play a role, and as an organization, come out and tell us, these are our members who are involved in this illegal business. We want to bring them out and state this, so-and-so is doing this business. And if we do this, we want to have a conversation on how you are going to regulate tax so that we can be able to do business. To that extent, I agree that there has to be a conversation. But that conversation between the government and the bar owners and beverage association has to be a balance. That as we talk about how we will look into taxing of this business, let also come out and tell us that these are our members who are selling illicit breed.
Because then this happens with the very same
exactly
that have been licensed.
It has to be a conversation of give and take.
Before we come to you, I know you want to respond and defend.
I don't know whether I should classify the Kenya Kwanza sympathizers as one of the 1,000 ways to die.
Well, Mushenu has been here long enough, alive, and
obstructive, dishonest rhetorics that they spew may sometimes really wear people out, because we may focus on to measure in funny minors, which we know has no long-term solution. And I think those are the major undoing that this president has done to himself by surrounding himself with individuals who are not circumspect and does not advise him for posterity. Has Bata closed or not? That is not even a discussion we should be having. How many companies have closed in 2022 alone? Over 53. Akina Hilton are citing difficult economic environments and difficult market conditions. You look at this company called GlaxoSmithKline, a major British multinational pharmaceutical company and biotechnology. It's closing at a time when they were booming. And what are they citing? A difficult operation, operation within the country. And why? Some are citing same taxation. Actually, William Ruto was part of the same regime and still is. And is not convincing us by taking measures that can reverse these difficult environmental conditions. If anything, actually, he is becoming like Solomon's son. He's doubling or tripling the same difficult economic environment. And if you are thinking for posterity, you know the end result will be the closure of what? Industries. And that's what I mentioned earlier. And these are the policies of these individuals who dangle aid and funny loan policies, and they rush for quick fix and forget that you cannot grow your economy if you're not going to produce anything or manufacture anything about it. Now you're closing the doors for those manufacturing. You're closing the doors for those productions. And you're rushing at closing them down. You're like, they need to pay tax. These are arguments of people who don't want to pay tax. Who has been paying taxes? And the taxes he's using is whose taxes? Yes, who has he taken to court that is not paying tax? Please, let's not use simple, sympathetic statements to again abuse and insult the same Kenyans who actually are bearing the heaviest load on their shoulder. We need leadership that is sensitive to the people it serves. We did not put in place leadership to be a cartel for external forces, so that they, again, steal from our very, very hard-earned resources. Because how do they make money? How is World Bank making money? On interest. Each time they give you loan and you pay on interest, that is how they're making their money. So they'll do everything to make sure that you don't get your money elsewhere, but get money from them for them to continue making their money. And who are they using? And the beneficiaries or the cartels that they're using are the same guys that we're now sitting with and telling us how, you know what, just keep paying taxes like though we've not been responsible. Kenyans are some of the law-abiding citizens. Kenyans are good people. Given opportunity, we would want to go about our businesses, open our businesses, and feed our families. We don't even care about being dependent on who. Where I come from, they say, Jaluo Kwechi. In other words, the Luos don't beg. And then the government forces you to beg. So why are you being forced to beg? Because that are closing your businesses, making the business environment be very difficult. They have come up with 1,001 levies and even clearances. You need to pay for this permit, you need to pay for that. Is that a person whose intention is really to help this environment thrive and grow? No. They are continually being an affront to our economic posterity. And these are the things that we're pointing out. We're not pointing out these things because we're telling Kenyans not to pay tax, and now we can do. If we choose to tell Kenyans not to pay tax, and we are going to do this even in the near future, because I know the ping pong that they are playing with Azimio and the Kenya Kwanza, where in the same club, when during the day they fight against each other, thinking that they're fighting for Kenyans, and during the night they're eating in the same club. Those are the things that have actually kept the citizen passive from taking back their own sovereign authority to act it. And as time comes, and I say this as the party leader of Justice and Freedom Party, with a grassroots membership and a connection to various counties. And we are talking with our people and we are consulting. We won't wait and be boxed within this, a club of choose between this and this just to prolong time and bleed our suffering. We are going to get opportunity to take back our sovereign authority and act it directly. And when we act it directly, even these guys who are threatening us that we're not paying taxes, that's the time they will know what it means not to pay tax.
In defense, or perhaps right to reply before we shift to a different conversation.
Actually, I don't even want to defend myself because I'm a business leader. And
you'll be defending very many others who are under you.
Yeah, I'm a business leader, and I don't defend statements of activism. Because statements of activism, they have not so much knowledge about the industry or the business. So I don't defend political statements, because politicians dance to the tune that is there, what is current and maybe what can earn you an appointment or such kind of a thing. What we're giving are statements of facts, are business statements. The industry that we're defending, or when you defend the business community, we defend them based on knowledge, based on research. When you give suggestions to government, because by telling us that we contribute 458 billion every year, so which in compliance is there in terms of taxes. We are the second contributors of taxes, the second corporate contributors of taxes apart from Safaricom, which is the first. We have employed 506,000 employees directly. Don't count the.
And so when you say we, you mean Balita?
I mean the whole industry.
The whole industry.
The whole industry, because
yes,
we have so many. We have so many things. 65% of NTSA marketing budget on responsible drinking and what have you, it's ASU fund. And let me say something. Subsidies, because I think there is a bedeviling of subsidies. Subsidies are not illegal, and subsidies are not bad things. And there's something I want to ask, because subsidies, they've really been devilized. Why were these subsidies given? Because it's good we look at, we were just coming from COVID. Even the hotel industry was given subsidies. We are coming from an unprecedented, unexpected calamity, world calamity. That's why we needed to support those businesses for them to come up. And I'll even add something else. Right now, the conversation that is in Europe, they've already subsidized their fuel. So subsidies is not the devil. I'll give another example. In the US, the cost of fuel, I was in the US last month. The cost of fuel in Kenyan shillings right now is 127 shillings per liter. Where are we headed as a country from the taxes that we are proposing? So subsidies is not the devil, not unless we don't know what exactly subsidies are or the economic condition that we were in.
They are necessary ones.
That is one. Number two, in terms of compliance, I have talked about 45% of the liquor that is in the market is counterfeit and illicit. When we work with the government, when you have a conversation with the government and propose or work together, because I don't know why there is insecurity for KEPSA, Association of Manufacturers and the others, we go back to the round table where so many things would be solved. I remember even there was a time there was a challenge on certificate of origin, which was reversed from being given from the Ministry of Trade to Kenya Chamber of Commerce. And those are the opportunities that we are looking, in which case it would really hurry the process of export and trade fairs and such kind of negotiation. The other thing is this. When you talk about export processing zones, export promotion and import conversation, if the government goes on itself without consulting the private sector, who is going to invest in those export processing zones? It is the private sector. Even if we, like for example, we have a suggestion for the housing levy. And the suggestion that we have for the housing levy, what if we identify pieces of land under PPP, we identify pieces of land, we build infrastructure towards that place. And then we look for investors. There are so many investors here who have money. We look for investors. We tell them, we want you to do this home. The rent that we're going to give, this is the restriction. We want you to charge 3,000 shillings per home for this period of time and what have you. We would really save our people from the agony and anguish of increasing taxes. Yeah. Because when you look at when we look at bringing this conversation of housing levy, Mona, and everything that we have researched and what have you, and even where we are right now, the 3%, we are not going to get the yield from the proposals that we have. We've now reduced this to 1.5. There are suggestions that we suspend it by a year. What if we do it via PPP? If that is a dream of this government, we do it via PPP. We look for pieces of land. We invite investors, the government to do what it's supposed to do, which is infrastructure, providence of water, and what have you. And then those guys, they're put under contract. And they're told, now, if you build, this is the kind of homes that you're supposed to build, this is the kind of rent that you're supposed to build for this period of time, and such kind of a thing. There are so many people who are willing to invest in such kind of affordable housing. Those are suggestions, and that is a conversation that we can have with government. And as we are saying, the government should consult. Because let me tell you, when they bring all this, okay, the main purpose of the government is to bring a conducive environment to operate. To who? If we don't consult that final person or that investor, we'll be sitting in the office, coming up with policies. At the end of the day, we're reducing the job market.
Well, good enough. We do not forget that we do not have a functional, Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, and we should be waiting for that. I know we don't have time to this, but being a politician, what does it speak to the country? Well, acknowledging the fact that there are some people who would be having members of parliament right now, members of county assemblies, but they don't.
Disrespect to institutions. And I cautioned this because for any good democracy, you need functional institutions. And they said bad democracy, institutions don't work because in bad democracies, we have individuals who have turned to be institutions. Actually, I classify them as populist and the personist. And sometimes to them, is the institution, is the alpha and omega. Everything begins and are defined by them. Yet we envisage an environment where no one affronts the rights of others, but institutions function to serve everyone. And the way, IEBC needed to function, or even the commissioners, when they were holding out the commissioners out of office, actually as a party, we made the first press conference before he was sworn in. And the reminder was, follow the law. Number 2 was, avoid vendetta. And vengeance is not for a leader. And also learn from those who opposed you. Actually, somebody said you need the enemies to even grow a distance, not just friends. And when they started, the first thing they did was to attack IEBC. They sent those 4 guys home. Yet they didn't even listen to what the court ruling was. I was waiting for interpretation of the court ruling, especially the Supreme Court, which actually pointed out and cited unilateral actions that the chairman took against the collegiate approach that he ought to have taken with the various commissioners. And we threw these guys out of the office unceremoniously with dishonor and with disrespect. And here we are again without posterity. This reactional thinking where everyone is looking just today, not thinking about tomorrow. We can't plan. It takes us to what Botha said, that these guys lack foresight when he was abusing the Africans in apartheid rule. Clearly, people have no foresight because the institution of IEBC has its own constitutional timeline and provision on how you need to change. And that notwithstanding, just the other day we undertook the process of making that this commission or institution functions. And some of us were surprised by the high-handedness of the Kenya Kwanza government.
Yeah. They
went to Public Service Commission and they make sure they got a Kenya Kwanza person. They went to Public Service Commission, of course we know, that's a Kenya Kwanza person. They went to law societies, and that's, well, these were the things which are in the public domain. They got a Kenya Kwanza person. They came to political parties, where I was. And it is one of the worst election I've ever participated in. Actually, I was one of the aspirants, my brother. So I'm telling what I experienced, encountered. And I've never seen money move in simple election of just 90 people counting in millions, not just tens of millions.
You can substantiate that.
Oh, I can't, and I can give evidence. So when I'm talking about these things, these are measures that are skewed towards the benefit of one entity. And why would somebody not just let the institutions function? Because if all these institutions that the Constitution provides for, Azimio guys boycotted, around 8 of them never voted. I wish they voted for me, would have been somewhere else. And that mandated the Kenya Kwanza guy. It was not a major win, but it was serious vote buying. So when we are looking at the entire process and the high-handedness on how they infiltrate and manipulate the constitutional process, I think these are the things that have now stalled us. When we started discussing about the crisis around the SEM, we told them that the best approach to it is a multi-sectoral approach. Kenya is a multi-party democracy. Kenya is not a bi-party democracy, where you choose Azimio, put there, and put Kenya Kwanza there, and you say, now Kenya is talking. And then some of us have told them, just like the days of BBI, or we told him the same, listen to us. Kenya is not a bipartisan. It's not a handshake of two individuals. Kenya is a community of people. If we want to dialogue on matters of electoral process, then all the stakeholders regarding election must be included. And failure to which, the way we stopped BBI, so will we stop this? And that manifests to you either the goodwill of that individual to render a solution or not render a solution, because somebody chooses a path that he knows is going to fail already. So if we need a solution regarding IEBC, this can take place even within a day if somebody has a goodwill. And the reason why they keep on weakening this institution, making sure that it has no historical memory, making sure that it is always vulnerable to their manipulation. Actually, all the Kenyans' problems begin and ends with election. Because without election, we've always been okay. Come election, then we have all these challenges, and that is how they're handling. And that can tell you what he's planning also for 2027. And we won't allow. We are here. We will make sure that the right procedures see the light of the day.
We'll close it for us in less than 2 minutes.
I think it's absurd and it's crazy for a certain clique of people to think that they have monopoly of facts. They have the monopoly of telling the truth. Let me tell you, Rinda, the Kenya Kwanza government, when it came, it has not amended any law in regard to election. These are laws that we have out there. You know, we are speaking here as if we do not have an existing well-anchored route of having a new IEBC. In fact, if Kenya Kwanza is entertaining a bipartisan talk, it is because we think this country is far much important than all of us. But if it is about the law, there exists a very elaborate process of getting a new IEBC. It is not proper for someone to come on this platform and say that the IEBC commissioner was sent in extrajudicial, in extra-legal means. The process that Nidumbi...
It was a vendetta.
You see,
that's why we would want to challenge that, because
it was a vendetta.
We picked a selection committee and, gazetted it.
Can you listen?
You see,
this is the thing. The Constitution is very clear on a process of removing any member of
they could have followed that before removing.
We have to close. Allow me to finish my line of thought.
No, you can't finish.
You see, the process is that the law is very clear how you remove somebody who is a member of an independent commission.
Yes.
If I Mushendo feel obliged and please, I think
those guys get out of the office, they ought to have been replaced.
The good doctor to allow me to execute my point.
And we don't have time for that.
Yes, but I find it outrageous that he has the capacity to interrogate my line of thought when I am giving it. The point of the matter is the process of removing a member of independent commission is very elaborate in our law. If as Mushendo I feel that so-and-so does not deserve to be there, I will write to Parliament. The responsible departmental committee will initiate proceedings. They will make a report to the president. The president will see the need to appoint a commission of inquiry.
Which we witness.
Yes. If I choose not to be investigated by the commission of inquiry, I will resign. If the commission of inquiry investigates me and finds finds me guilty, it will table a report to the president to send me away. So please, let nobody come here and
commission.
This country is a banana republic.
Parliament that has been taken over by the executive.
You cannot begin just when we have...
Just inform the public correctly. You see, we are having issues with the parliament.
Yeah.
A parliament that actually been usurped by the same executive. And they've misused the parliament. Right now, look at even how these guys are on office. Even the formation of the inquiry, judicial inquiry, of cronies, whose the interest you already see clearly.
Drive an agenda that is not supported.
You challenge that in court. You challenge that in court.
Exactly.
Is it an active case in court?
Don't you see?
Is it an active case in court?
Why
it is not. I mean,
it's because Kenya Kwanza's
people must stop
and impunity, lack posterity, they create crisis, and then they expect us to give them
and we moved on.
That is story for another day. Story for another day. 1 minute. Close for us.
From the business community.
Yes.
And from the politicians, both Azimio, Kenya Kwanza, and his political party. Please make sure that we have peace for us to be able to do business. During the demonstrations, we lost 6.7 billion. That's what we are losing per week. So continue with your democratic space, but give us peace for us to do business.
If they follow the law, and these ones break the law every day, and they're the ones who are taking our peace. We just want you to do your business.
You want to be the last speaker, so the last speaker is Dr. Justice Juma.
Right. At least I have known today he was a presidential candidate.
Well,
last election, yeah.
Well, because that's the disease of Kenya. I told you it's one of the 1,000 ways to die, because they are closed in a myopia in a box,
and healthy.
They never think outside. They never think outside the box.
We have to close.
And when you're talking about solution, we have a precious country. We have a precious country. Business people, focus on doing your business. You have defenders who are going to defend you against impunity of unlawful actions. And these are the things that we are trying to do, pursue civil ways on how to make sure that we have sustainability, but not encourage impunity and tyranny of this nature that they keep using. And then they cause those crises, and they look at like they're the messiahs.
We're out.
Here we are with citizens, we don't let you go.
Peter Moshendu, Governor.